Hello friends, welcome to Salesforce CRM Analytics video session 237. So basically in today's video, we will actually try to understand about the roll-up and grouping part. Something which I covered in the last video. I gave a hint, basically how in the computable we can go for the roll-up and grouping. Today we will understand a very simple scenario on how the application of roll-up and grouping helps us to find the aggregation, the let's say the total count of industry or the total count of stages if you want to find out. In that way it can help us, and if time permits we will also cover very quickly the offset part. Okay, so first of all, let me just recapitulate what we did in the previous video. So as I was showing you in the previous one, let's say I go for count of rows and I go for stage. Okay, now basically if you see over here, once we go to compare table, here you have this option of show total. So whatever is the total count, you get to see it over here, that is 717. But the point is, like this particular total, which you see, if I want to see it in a chart format, let's say I want to see that complete total in a chart format, I won't be able to see that. So for that, we have to use the application of rollup and grouping. Now you already have this guide with you. So if you move to this page 21, yeah. So in this particular thing, this is of course, the Salesforce Winter 26 document. Somewhere, even if you go for other release document in future, you will also find it somewhere around this page itself. Okay, so calculating grand totals and subtotals with the rollup modifier and grouping. So to calculate subtotals of group data in your SQL query using the rollup modifier and a group by statement, then work with subtotal data using grouping. For example, to see the subtotal value of opportunities by type and lead source, roll up the type and lead source group, then label the subtotals with the grouping function. Invoking rollup, add rows to your query results with null values for dimension and subtotal results for measure. So invoking grouping returns 1 if none dimensions are due to higher level aggregates, which usually means the row is a subtotal. Otherwise, it returns 0. Using grouping alongside rollup lets you work with subtotal data. Okay. So this is the complete theory which is written. Now, if you see over here, for example, this rollup, once they apply this rollup, right, what will happen is basically a total will come over here. Okay. Now that is something which we are going to look into right now. So here, for now, let me just clear the sorting. That's not needed for me. But if I go to query mode, and here, basically, if I just write the rollup part, I'm just grouping this as a rollup. Okay. Now, if you see over here, we are getting something 717 at last. Okay. So if I go to chart mode, here, if you see, it is coming as 717. So this complete total which you see, that is coming as 717. Okay. We have already seen it in the compare table, so I'm not doing it in a calculator. So if you add all these ups, that is 120 plus 400 plus 1 plus 25 up till this 36, you will get the total as 717. The only issue is this is coming as a blank, so that is what is written over here, that is coming as a blank over here. Okay, now this particular thing can be resolved by grouping. Null values in place of label totals can confuse query results. Avoid this confusion by labeling total as all types or all lead source using case. So here is a different scenario, but what they are meaning to say is that null value which appears once you do that grouping over here, right? Like case when grouping equal to 1, then all types. So grouping equal to 1 is applicable when that is a null value. Okay. So after that grouping, whenever that null value occurs, that is equal to 1. That is what is equal to 1 in the SQL part. So we can read this part once again over here. If you see invoking rollup, add rows to your query results with null values for dimensions and subtotal result for measure. Invoking, as you can see over here, invoking grouping returns 1. Okay, so here is the main thing, returns 1 if null dimension values are due to higher level aggregates, which usually means the row is a subtotal. So whenever grouping equal to 1, that means it's a subtotal and that is appearing as 1, otherwise it returns 0. Now this is something which we are going to utilize. Okay, so here what I will do right now is, let me delete all these things. Now coming back to that SAQL mode. So this stage name, what I'm writing, I'm just going to write is when Q dot grouping of. So whenever this grouping of stage is equal to 1, then I will just say all stages, okay? Let's say I write something like all stage total, okay? As stage, then else it will be stage name as end as stage name, and I'm going to run this query. Now if you see over here, we are getting the all stage total. So if I go to the chart mode, here that is what it is coming up. Okay, so this total you see 717, and that all stage total is coming right over here. So that is what the meaning of this is. So once you roll up, it will help you to aggregate that. Okay, that aggregation is going to happen. That is something which is written over here as well. And once that roll up is invoked, basically that particular roll up is going to return 1 once you do the grouping part. Okay, so invoking grouping returns 1 if null dimension whether due to higher level aggregates. We can try for one more example. Let's say I try for account. I'm not sure what I have done over it. Okay, let me try something related to account, for example. Here, let's say I write all stage total. Okay, let me write over here all stage total. I will save it in my SAQL app. The same thing we will try over here as well. So let's say I directly go to my compare table and let me see what is the total of industry. So here, for example, if I bring the industry part, now as you can see, these are the count of industries which I have. I have also blank, which is 6, which is completely fine. Now, what I'm going to do is like here, I will go for show total. The total, as you can see, it's 1008, right? That is the complete total which you get to see over here. Now, of course, see, you might ask like, what is the application of total? Because usually the total is nothing but the count of rows, but you can apply this for the sum of amount as well. Okay, so sum of annual revenue, sum of amount in that scenario also you can apply that, right? So for example, let's say here I go for sum of annual revenue. Okay, so the sum of annual revenue, if you see, or let's for now go for the count itself. Let's keep the number a bit short so that we can avoid certain confusion. It's 1008. Okay. Now, of course, I want to see that in chart mode. So how we can see that? Now here also it is blank, but as you must have read over here that basically when you apply that grouping, that will return that one due to the higher level aggregates. So if something blank is existing already as it is, then over there, you know, that all stage total or industry total won't come up. It's only going to come up once the higher level aggregation is done due to the roll up, and wherever you get that blank, that will actually we can see it as like we can just make it as all stage total or all industry total, whatever we want to get by applying the case when statement related to that. So here what I'm going to do is I can go to this particular here. I can skip this part. The order is not required for me. Here I can write roll up. Okay. I will just apply that function roll up once again. So Q equal to Q equal to group by roll up industry. And here what I'm going to write is case when grouping this grouping of industry is equal to 1, then uh, like I let me name it as total industry. Okay, total industries, as else it will be industry only. Sorry. So I think I'm done with this. So here I am first of all rolling up the industry and I'm writing generate case when grouping of industry equal to 1, the total industry of industry and this industry. Here what is giving? Okay, I have to give it in double quotes. Okay. So now as you can see here, if you also have the blank, but basically that blank which we are getting due to the roll up over there is going to get replaced by total industry. Now if I go to chart mode, okay, yeah, here you can see basically this complete total is coming up. Okay, that is 1008. Fine. We can play around with the formatting part to make it in a presentable format, but at the end of the day, right now we actually got the total. That is what we wanted. So that is something we already got it over here. I can save it as total industry count. Cool. So that is about the roll up and grouping, which I wanted to explain you. And very quickly also, let me just cover up the offset functionality. So that is all about the roll up and grouping. Now, what is the offset kind of a thing here? So for example, let's say I go for this stage and I'm clearing the sorting from here. And let's say I go for the count of rows in descending order. Okay. So this is the descending order of the stage. Now, what offset does is basically it skips whatever number you give for the offset, it will skip those particular number of rows. Okay. So here, let's say I go for this particular thing that is stage name. I'm clearing out this part and sorting in descending. And on Google, let me write this function offset in. So we can go for this guide. Here, if you see, as it's mentioned, use offset to paste through the results of a query, which means skips over the specified number rows when returning the result of your query. For example, if you want the rows from 551 to 101, we can just write offset q 50. That's it. Okay. So for example, let's say this particular thing, let's say I want to skip the first three rows. So here also you can see I have the first three rows. Let's say I want to skip the first three rows and I want to start from value proposition. In that case, if I give the offset 3, it will start from value proposition. So what I'm going to do is I will just come over here and I will just write after this particular statement q equal to offset q. I give the value 3. Now if you see, if I go to the chart mode, basically it skipped the first 3, and as you can see, starting from value proposition. Similarly, if I give 4, it's going to start from need as it's going to skip the first 4, of course. So let's say I write something like 4. So as you can see here, I'm getting to see this particular thing of let's skip the first one and start it from need analysis. So in this way, you can go for offset function as well. So that is all about this video. I didn't write any particular query, but we can definitely practice on this part. Maybe in one of the sessions we will practice as well. So the roll up is basically you just roll it up to get that aggregate, which is properly written in this particular document as well. Invoking roll up add rows to your query results with none value for dimensions. Okay. And that grouping part which I'm doing, so once the grouping is done, basically once the roll up is done, right? So for that roll up, due to that high level aggregates which happens when we invoke the roll up function, a null dimension comes, and once we apply the grouping, that grouping will return 1 for that null dimension, and that we can replace with that dash with whatever values we want to give. For example, if we give the all stage total. Okay. Similarly, I get for the industry. This blank was already as it is, like there was no industry mapped because industry is not a compulsory fill in account. But for the roll up, whatever that blank was appearing, that is replaced by total industry. And finally, we understood offset, which is about skipping a first few rows which you want to do, which you can see over here as well. Sometimes when you need rows from a particular number, then we can go for that offset function, which I've shown over here. So yeah, that is all about this roll up, grouping, and offset functions. And yeah, let's meet very soon in our next video. Thank you.